You ever have one of those moments where the entire world just shifts under your feet? Like reality itself plays a cruel little trick, twisting something familiar into something grotesque? Yeah, that happened to me. Except instead of an existential crisis or some mind-blowing revelation, I got a very clear, very undeniable truth handed to me on a silver platter. My wife was cheating on me. Now, let's be clear about something. I'm not the kind of guy who whines about betrayal, drowns himself in self-pity, or spends nights crying into a bottle. No, the moment I saw the proof for raw, indisputable proof, I didn't break down. I didn't even get angry. I just smiled. Because that was the exact second I knew. I was going to destroy her. The discovery wasn't dramatic. No catching her in the act, no dramatic confrontation in our bedroom. It was mundane. Boring, even. The universe didn't even grant me the courtesy of a cinematic moment. It happened on a random Tuesday, during lunch, in the middle of a work email. My phone vibrated. I glanced down. A notification from our phone carrier. Your account summary is now available. Normally, I would have ignored it. But my brain, in its infinite wisdom, decided to open it. And there it was, an unusually long list of text messages and call logs to a number I didn't recognize. Hundreds of them. Spanning months. Consistent patterns. Morning texts. Late-night calls. The kind of frequency you don't even see between married couples anymore. I stared at the screen for a solid 30 seconds, letting the reality settle. My lunch was half-eaten. My inbox still had unread emails. The office around me buzzed with the usual white noise of workday monotony. But none of that mattered. Because in that moment, I wasn't in my office anymore. I was inside the problem. I copied the number, pasted it into a search bar, and waited. It took less than a second to match a name to the digits. A name I recognized. Someone I'd met before. A friend of hers. And that's when it happened. That's when the smile started. It wasn't a happy smile. No satisfaction. No amusement. Just pure, calculated acknowledgement of what came next. Because at that moment, one very simple truth became clear. I was no longer her husband. I was her reckoning. I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and walked out of the office. I needed fresh air. Not because I was overwhelmed. No, I just needed space to think. To plan. Because this wasn't going to be some reckless, emotional outburst. No throwing things. No shouting matches. No pitiful begging for explanations. I wasn't going to be that guy. No. If she thought she could betray me and get away with it, then she clearly didn't understand the man she married. I scrolled through our past messages. She'd been playing the role of a perfect wife. Loving texts. Cute selfies. Plans for our next vacation. Lies. All of it. I opened our shared calendar. She had a girls' night planned for the weekend. My mind clicked the pieces together. She's going to see him. That's not a girls' night at all. The realization didn't sting. It was simply information. Data to be used. The pain? That would come for her later. But not from me losing my mind. No. That pain was going to come from losing me. From watching everything she thought was stable and safe crumble right in front of her. And she wasn't even going to see it coming. I took another sip of coffee and stared at my reflection in a store window. I looked calm. Almost too calm. As if I had just made peace with some long-lost part of myself. The part that didn't tolerate betrayal. The part that won. The plan started forming right then and there. I wasn't going to leave. Not yet. No dramatic walkout. No knee-jerk reactions. That's what she'd expect. That's what weak men do. I was going to stay. Play my role. Let her believe she was safe. Let her think her secret was still intact. And then, when the moment was right, I was going to let her destroy herself. I checked the time. Still had a few hours left in my workday. I smirked. This was going to be the longest shift of my life, because all I wanted to do was go home, kiss her on the cheek, ask her how her day was, and watch as she lied to my face. This was no longer a marriage. This was a game. And I was about to win. If you had asked me a month ago what my life was like, I would have told you it was good. Not perfect, because nothing ever is, but good. Steady. The kind of life most men work their entire existence to build. A house that felt like home. A wife who kissed me goodbye in the mornings and curled up against me at night. A routine that, while predictable, gave me a sense of stability. Mornings were my favorite. I'd wake up first, always. She wasn't a morning person, so I'd let her sleep in while I got ready for work. I had a system shower, shave, coffee brewing while I checked emails. Sometimes I'd make breakfast, and when she finally stumbled out of bed, hair messy, eyes half open, she'd smile at me like I was the best thing she'd ever seen. And I believed it. Why wouldn't I? We had little rituals, things that made us us. She always left sticky notes on the fridge with random doodles or reminders, buy milk, or don't forget date night, or sometimes just a stupid little heart with my name. I kept them all, tucked away in a drawer, like they meant something more than just scribbles on paper. Weekends were slow, comfortable. She'd sleep in late, and I'd read or go for a run. We had our usual spots, breakfast at the diner down the street, grocery shopping together, movie nights where she'd inevitably fall asleep halfway through. I used to think those moments were proof of something unbreakable. Like all couples had ups and downs, but we were solid. Looking back, I realized now how naive that was. How I ignored the details that should have stood out. Not because they were obvious, but because when you love someone, you assume the best. You fill in the blanks with trust instead of doubt. And that's exactly what she counted on. There were little things, moments that didn't sit right, but I dismissed them as nothing. The way she'd leave the room to take certain phone calls, always with some flimsy excuse, it's just work, babe. The sudden change in her schedule, more girls' nights, more last-minute plans. The way she started getting dressed up for things that never used to matter. And when I'd tease her about it, she'd laugh, roll her eyes, and say, "Can't a girl feel pretty?" And I'd kiss her, tell her she was always beautiful. Because I meant it. I think about the nights when I'd wake up, and she wasn't in bed. I'd hear her downstairs, hushed voice, the soft glow of her phone lighting up her face. And I'd tell myself it was nothing. That maybe she just couldn't sleep. That maybe she was texting a friend. And when she'd finally slip back into bed, press herself against me, and whisper, "I love you," I'd let the doubt fade. Because why would she say it if she didn't mean it? I remember the day she started wearing perfume to work. Not her usual scent, the one I always associated with her, but something new. Something heavier, unfamiliar. I joked about it once. Trying to impress someone? And she smirked, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Only you." Lies. But at the time, I had no reason to doubt her. No reason to believe that the life I had built with her was anything but real. Our friends always said we were the perfect couple. The ones who never fought, never seemed to get tired of each other. And in a way, I think that was part of the problem. When something looks too perfect on the outside, you start to believe it yourself. You convince yourself that the cracks aren't cracks at all, just shadows from the light. Even now, after everything, I don't know when she stopped loving me, if she ever really did. Was it gradual? Did she wake up one morning and decide I wasn't enough? Or was it always there, that darkness, waiting beneath the surface? I think about the last time we had a real conversation. Not the day-to-day stuff. Not, "How was your day?" Or "Did you pick up the dry cleaning?" But something deeper. I can't even remember when that was. Maybe that was the biggest sign of all. Because love, real love, doesn't just disappear overnight. It fades, piece by piece, in the moments you don't notice. In the text she sends when she thinks you're not looking. In the way she starts to turn away instead of toward you. In the way she laughs at her phone, but not at your jokes. I see it all now. Every small moment, every tiny detail that should have been a warning. And the irony is that if she had just been honest, if she had looked me in the eye and said, "I don't love you anymore," I could have walked away. I could have let go. But she didn't. She chose to lie, to sneak around, to make a fool of me. And that's something I can't forgive. Because the man she married, the man who loved her without question, is gone. And in his place, someone she should have never betrayed. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary. She was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone while a show played in the background. I was at the kitchen table, finishing up some work. Just another night in our so-called perfect life. And then it happened. A moment so small, so seemingly insignificant, that on any other day, I might not have even noticed it. But I did. Because I was already paying attention. Her phone lit up. A text. She glanced at it, then too quickly tilted the screen away. Not a natural movement. Not the way someone absent-mindedly shifts in their seat. It was controlled. Intentional. And in that fraction of a second, I saw something else. The tiniest smile. Not the kind she gave me. Not the polite, amused smirk she'd flash at a funny meme. This was different. It was the kind of smile that people get when they think no one is watching. The kind that means something. I kept my expression neutral, forcing myself to stay in the moment, to act like I hadn't noticed. But inside, something shifted. A piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. She typed something back, then locked her phone and stretched, letting out an exaggerated sigh. "Ugh, work is so annoying today," she said, setting her phone face down on the couch beside her. She glanced at me, casual, testing. It was a throwaway line, meant to redirect. A small, subtle lie disguised as a complaint. I just nodded, keeping my voice even. Yeah? What happened? She waved a hand dismissively. Just the usual. Karen from accounting is driving me crazy. She rolled her eyes, then stood up and grabbed her phone, almost as if she needed to move, to break the moment before I could dig any deeper. I'm gonna take a quick shower. All right. I didn't look up. I wanted her to think I wasn't paying attention. I listened to her footsteps, the way they were just a little too quick, too eager to leave the room. The bathroom door clicked shut. And then, I moved. I wasn't reckless. I didn't snatch up her phone like some paranoid idiot. I simply leaned back, angled my chair slightly, and took in the scene. The way she had placed the phone face down, something she never used to do. The way she had locked it immediately after responding. The way she had lied, smoothly, easily, as if it was second nature. I wasn't the jealous type. I never had been. But this wasn't jealousy. This was something else. My mind worked through it logically. Could it have been nothing? Sure. People change habits. Maybe she really was just annoyed with work and didn't want to get into it. Maybe she'd seen something funny but didn't think it was worth sharing. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But my gut told me otherwise. I had spent years learning her moods, her tells, the way she moved when she was happy, the way she hesitated when something was off. And right now, something was off. I stood up, walked to the sink, and poured myself a glass of water, using the movement to think. If I confronted her now, she'd have an easy out. I'd come off as paranoid, insecure. She'd laugh, roll her eyes, call me crazy for thinking anything of it. And maybe, just maybe, she'd be right. But I knew better. So I waited. When she came back, hair damp, towel wrapped around her, she was smiling again, like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, lingered just enough to sell the act. What do you want to do for dinner? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had built a life with. The woman who, up until now, I had trusted completely. And for the first time, I saw it. The mask. It was still there, still perfectly in place. But now I knew to look for it. And once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. Whatever you feel like, I said, my voice easy, casual. She grinned. Pizza. Sounds good. She flopped down onto the couch again, picking up her phone without hesitation, like nothing was wrong. Like nothing had changed. But it had. Because that was the moment I knew. She was hiding something. And I was going to find out exactly what. It started small, a shift in behavior, a change in routine, little things that most people wouldn't notice, but I did because once you see the first crack in the mask, you start looking for more, and they're always there if you pay attention. So I started watching, not in a way that would make her suspicious, but in a way that let me see what I had missed before. I became quieter, more observant. I stopped asking questions and just listened, because when you stop pushing people to explain themselves, they get careless, they assume you aren't paying attention, and that's when they make mistakes. Her phone was the first thing I noticed. She never used to care where she left it. Sometimes it would sit on the kitchen counter for hours untouched. Now, it was always with her, always face down, always locked. I tested this. Once while she was in the shower, I casually reached for it, not to go through it, not yet, just to see, and the moment my fingers brushed against it, the screen lit up, asking for a passcode, a new passcode, because the one I knew, the one we had always shared, was no longer valid. She had changed it without telling me, and that was all the confirmation I needed. The next was her schedule. Suddenly, she was busy all the time, late meetings, after work, drinks, spontaneous plans with friends she hadn't mentioned in months. I started keeping track, nothing obvious, just mental notes of where she said she would be at what time, who she claimed she was with, and then I started checking, not confronting, just verifying. I'd drive past the bar she said she was at, and she wasn't there. I'd check the social media of the friends she claimed to be with, and they were somewhere else entirely. Always little inconsistencies, tiny mismatched details that wouldn't stand out alone, but together they painted a picture. So I played along. When she said she had a last-minute dinner with a friend, I smiled and told her to have fun. When she said she had a work event that ran late, I kissed her goodbye and told her not to worry. When she laughed at something on her phone and quickly tucked it away, I acted like I hadn't noticed, because I wasn't ready to show my hand yet. I needed more. I started leaving subtle bait, nothing obvious, just small comments to see how she'd react. One night over dinner, I casually mentioned that I had a friend whose wife had been acting strange, and it turned out she was cheating. Her reaction was immediate. She laughed too hard, dismissed it too quickly, called it ridiculous, but her hands fidgeted just slightly. Her eyes darted away, Just a little too fast. She recovered well, but I caught it a small stumble, a tiny slip, and that was enough. Then there were the lies, little ones at first easy to catch. She'd say she was too busy at work to text back. But then I'd see her posting on social media. She'd tell me she was staying late at the office, but her car wasn't in the parking lot. When I drove past, she thought she was being clever, covering her tracks with just enough effort to make it believable for someone who wasn't looking closely, but I was, and every little lie stacked up one on top of the other until there was no denying it. I started keeping records not out of paranoia, but out of necessity, a private folder on my phone, timestamps, locations, inconsistencies, screenshots of her messages, where she claimed to be one place, when she was somewhere else, notes about the nights she came home later than usual, how she smelled different, how her mood shifted depending on whether she had seen him that day. Patterns emerged clear as day, and with every new piece of evidence I felt nothing, not anger, not heartbreak, just cold calculation. One night, she slipped up badly. She told me she was going to bed early, had an exhausting day at work. She even kissed me goodnight, tucked herself under the blankets, and turned off the lights. But something felt off, so I waited 15 minutes, 30, then an hour, and when I was sure she thought I was asleep, I heard it, the soft shuffle of blankets, the barely there creak of the mattress. She was careful, moving, slow, deliberate. Then the faint glow of her phone screen, the quiet tapping of fingers against glass, messaging him, probably telling him she wished she was with him instead of here with me. And that was the moment I decided I had enough. I laid there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to her whispering to him, thinking she was being so clever, so secretive, and I realized I wasn't angry, not even a little bit, because anger is a reaction, and I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning, because if she thought she could outsmart me, she was wrong. I wasn't just going to expose her, I was going to make sure she destroyed herself with her own lies. All I had to do was wait for the perfect moment. There's a moment when suspicion turns into certainty, when all the little pieces, the late nights, the locked phone, the small lies suddenly snap together into something undeniable. And in that moment, everything freezes, not in the dramatic cinematic way, where time slows down, but in a way that feels sharper, more precise, like a scalpel slicing through everything you thought was real. That moment happened for me on a Sunday afternoon, when I finally saw it with my own eyes, when the last shred of doubt evaporated, leaving only the cold, hard truth staring back at me. And the best part, she had no idea I was watching. I hadn't planned on catching her that day. I wasn't even looking for proof, not directly. I had already collected more than enough inconsistencies to know what was happening. But I needed something final, something concrete, something that couldn't be explained away. So when she told me she was going to meet a friend for coffee, I did what I had learned to do best. I smiled, nodded, and let her believe she was in control. Then I waited 5 minutes, 10, just enough time for her to think she was in the clear, before I grabbed my keys and followed. I didn't have to go far. She wasn't careful, never had been, not really. She thought she was, because I had let her think she was smarter than me. But people like her, they don't cover their tracks perfectly. They cover them just enough for someone who isn't looking, and I was looking. She wasn't at a coffee shop. She was at a restaurant, the kind of place we used to go for special occasions, tucked into a booth in the corner across from him. And the way she looked at him, I recognized it immediately, because that's how she used to look at me. I didn't move, didn't storm, and didn't cause a scene, because this wasn't about anger. This wasn't about some cheap public confrontation that would give her an excuse to play the victim. No, this was about control, about making sure I owned every second of what came next. So I just stood there watching, not for long, just long enough to see the way she leaned and the way he touched her wrist, the way she smiled at him, like he was the center of her world. And that's when it hit me, not sadness, not even rage, but something colder, deeper, the kind of clarity that only comes when you finally understand exactly where you stand in someone else's life. I had been nothing more than an obstacle, a safety net, a placeholder, while she entertained herself with someone else. And in that realization, something inside me shifted, snapped into place. This wasn't going to be a breakup, this was going to be a reckoning. I turned around, walked back to my car, sat there for a moment, letting the truth settle, not because it hurt, but because I wanted to savor it. I wanted to remember this moment, the exact second I stopped being the man she thought she could manipulate. Because from here on out, I wasn't just her husband, I was her downfall. When I got home, I started gathering everything I would need, not for a confrontation, not yet. That would be too easy. No, I needed to dismantle her carefully, strategically. I went through our finances, our shared accounts, our house, everything we owned together, and started making moves, subtle ones, shifting money, preparing documents, setting things in motion that she wouldn't notice until it was too late. Then I went back to my collection of evidence. Because now it wasn't just about knowing the truth, it was about using it. Her messages, her call logs, the changes in her routine, every detail, every inconsistency, I lined them all up piece by piece like a puzzle, and when I was done I had exactly what I needed. When she came home later that evening, she kissed me like nothing was wrong, smiled at me like she hadn't spent the afternoon with another man, and I let her, because that was the last time she would ever get to lie to me and think she got away with it. The game had officially begun, and she didn't even know she was already losing. I sat in the quiet of our home, the same home, where she smiled at me in the mornings, kissed me before bed, whispered, "I love you," while sneaking off to someone else, and I felt nothing, no pain, no heartbreak, just the weight of realization settling into something solid, something unshakable, because this wasn't about emotions anymore, this was about strategy. She thought she had played the perfect game, she thought she had manipulated every piece on the board, without me noticing, but what she didn't realize was that I had been playing all along, and now it was my turn to move. Revenge wasn't about rage, it wasn't about dramatic confrontations or petty destruction that would be too easy, too predictable. No, this had to be something precise, something designed to strike her exactly where it would hurt the most and leave her scrambling long after I was gone. I thought about what she valued, what she feared, what she took for granted. She had built her life around a certain image, the devoted wife, the charming social butterfly, the successful career woman. But beneath all, that was something fragile, something she never wanted the world to see, the cracks in her perfect illusion, and that's exactly where I would start. First, her reputation. She thrived on being admired, loved, the center of attention, at every gathering, always carefully curating the version of herself that he wanted others to see, so I made sure that version shattered in the most public way possible. I started small, subtle conversations with mutual friends, casual mentions of things she had told me in confidence, little inconsistencies dropped like breadcrumbs, leading to questions that she wouldn't be able to answer without lying, and the best part, she wouldn't even know where they were coming from. Then her career. She had worked hard to climb the ladder in her field, prided herself on her professionalism, on the respect she commanded from her colleagues, but what she didn't know was that I had access to everything: her emails, her work schedule, the little details that she had overlooked because she never thought she had to hide them from me, and with a few carefully placed pieces of information, a well-timed forwarded message to the right person, a small push in the right direction, I ensured that her carefully constructed image of reliability and integrity started to crumble from within. But the masterpiece, the final blow, was personal, because what she truly feared more than anything was irrelevance. She thrived on knowing she had control over the people in her life, that she was the one who decided when and how relationships ended, so I gave her exactly what she never expected: silence. I didn't argue, I didn't fight, I didn't let her see the moment. I stopped caring. Instead, I made sure she felt the absence of me in every corner of her life. I started by pulling away slowly, at first just enough for her to notice, but not enough for her to confront, then more deliberately canceling plans, avoiding conversations, letting her feel the shift, the uncertainty, the way the ground was moving beneath her feet, without her understanding why. And when she finally started to panic, when she began to sense that something was wrong, it was already too late, because by then I had taken everything. I drained our shared accounts legally, methodically, leaving just enough for her to believe nothing was wrong until she tried to use them and realized she had nothing left. I removed my name from everything tied to her: the house, the bills, the responsibilities, so that when the collapse came, it would be hers to deal with alone. And the best part, one made sure she discovered it all on her own. No dramatic announcements, no warnings, just a slow, inevitable realization that the life she thought she controlled was unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The final act was simple. I waited until she thought she was safe, until she convinced herself that whatever distance she felt was just in her head, and then on the day she least expected it, I handed her the proof, the messages, the photos, the receipts, all of it laid out in undeniable clarity, and I watched as her face fell, as the illusion she had built for herself shattered around her. But before she could speak, before she could scramble for an excuse, I simply smiled and walked away, leaving her standing there, drowning in the wreckage of her own making. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't anger or destruction, it was letting her live with the consequences of her choices and knowing she had lost the one thing she could never get back: me. There's an art to betrayal, not the kind she practiced, the clumsy, predictable kind filled with late-night whispers and poorly hidden text messages. No, the real artistry comes in the aftermath, in the way the pieces are arranged, in the way the truth is revealed at just the right moment, not in anger, not in haste, but with precision, with intent, with the certainty that when the trap closes, there will be no escape, no excuses, no lies left to hide behind. So I set the stage carefully, methodically, ensuring that when the moment came, she wouldn't just be exposed, she would be laid bare with nowhere to run. It started with a party, a gathering of friends and family, the kind of event she loved playing hostess for, where she could bask in the glow of admiration and attention, where she could laugh and smile and pretend that everything in her life was perfect. And that was exactly why I chose it, because I wanted her to feel safe, to believe that whatever tension she had sensed between us was just her imagination, that whatever guilt had flickered in the back of her mind could be ignored for one more night. The guests arrived, drinks flowed, conversations buzzed around the room. She played her role flawlessly, floating between groups, laughing at the right moments, placing her hand on my arm in just the right way, as if we were still the couple everyone believed us to be. But I watched her closely, watched the way she would glance at her phone when she thought no one was looking, watched the slight hesitation in her smile when I met her eyes, because she knew something was different even if she couldn't place it yet. And then came the moment, the perfectly timed trigger. I raised my glass, called for attention, let the room settle into anticipation, because they expected something lighthearted, a toast to friendship, a casual anecdote. But instead they got the truth delivered in the same measured tone I had practiced in my head over and over, until there was no emotion left in it, just the cold, sharp edge of reality. "I want to take a moment to appreciate my wife," I said, letting my eyes linger on her just long enough to see the shift in her expression, that flicker of unease before she masked it with a smile. "She's been working so hard lately, late nights, business meetings, always so busy. And I just want to say how proud I am of her, how much I admire the dedication she's shown." There was applause, murmurs of agreement, people nodding along, unaware of the undertone, the weight behind my words. But she knew. I saw the way her fingers tightened around her glass, the way her breath hitched just slightly as if she was bracing for something. "But what I admire most," I continued, "is her commitment to honesty, to loyalty, to the values we built our marriage on. She's always been so transparent with me, always made sure there were no secrets between us. And that's why I think tonight is the perfect time to share something special with all of you, something that truly captures just how strong our bond is." I pulled out my phone, the screen already queued up, and with a simple press of a button the room was filled with the unmistakable sound of her voice. Messages played aloud for everyone to hear, her words dripping with affection, with intimacy, but not for me. No, they were for him, the man she thought she had hidden so well. Text, plans, whispers of stolen moments, each one a nail in the coffin of the life she had so carefully constructed. And as the silence stretched, as the realization spread across the faces of everyone around us, I finally looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the exact moment she knew it was over. She tried to speak, to stammer out some excuse, some desperate attempt to regain control, but there was nothing left for her to hold on to, no lie that could undo what had just been laid bare. So she did the only thing she could do. She fled, eyes wide, face pale, slipping through the crowd, as whispers chased after her, the weight of humiliation pressing down on her with every step. But I wasn't done, because this wasn't just about exposure, it was about consequences. And as she stumbled out the door into the night, I followed, not to argue, not to listen to whatever pitiful excuse she had prepared, but to hand her the final piece of my plan, a single envelope thick with papers, with proof, with the signed documents that ensured she would walk away from this with nothing, no house, no accounts, no safety net, just the cold realization that everything she had counted on had been taken from her before she could even comprehend what had happened. She looked at me, then truly looked at me, for the first time in months, maybe even years, and I saw something there, something she had never expected. Regret, not for what she had done, but for the fact that she had lost. For the first time she understood that she hadn't outsmarted me, she hadn't manipulated her way into a clean exit. She had been played, and now she had to live with the wreckage. I didn't say anything as she opened the envelope, as she flipped through the pages with shaking hands. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to be said. This was the end of the game, and I had won. She stood there in the cold outside the party, gripping the envelope like it was the last thing tethering her to reality, her breath shaky, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages, her face shifting from confusion to horror to full-blown panic, because she understood now. This wasn't a fight, this wasn't an argument, this wasn't some dramatic scene where she could cry, scream, manipulate her way back in. This was the moment she realized she had lost completely, and there was nothing she could do to change it. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke my name, soft, desperate, barely above a whisper, like if she said it the right way with the right amount of vulnerability, it might undo everything. But I just watched her, no emotion, no anger, no satisfaction, just quiet, calculated silence, because that's what she deserved. No reaction, no validation, just the weight of her own consequences pressing down on her. "This isn't fair," she tried again, her voice rising, her eyes darting between me and the papers in her hand, her breathing uneven as if she was struggling to comprehend how everything had collapsed so quickly. "You're not even giving me a chance to explain." I tilted my head just slightly as if considering the idea, then I smiled, not a warm smile, not a forgiving smile, but a cold, detached smirk, the kind that let her know she was no longer talking to the man who used to love her. She was talking to the man she had created, the one who had spent weeks watching, waiting, planning Explain, I said, my voice calm measured. Explain what exactly? How you spent months lying to my face, how you thought you were so much smarter than me, how you thought I would never figure it out, or maybe you want to explain how you lie. Yet at my messages while you were in bed with him. Tell me, which part am I supposed to sit here and listen to? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing left for you to do is sign those papers and walk away. Tears welled in her eyes, real ones or forced. I didn't care anymore. She took a shaky breath, shaking her head like this was all some nightmare she could wake up from. Please, please don't do this. We can talk about this. We can fix this. You don't have to throw everything away. That was the moment I let out a quiet laugh, not bitter, not cruel, just amused, because she still didn't get it. She still thought this was about saving something that she had already burned to the ground. Throw everything away, I repeated slowly, letting the words sink in. You threw everything away the second you decided to cheat. You just didn't realize it until now. She tried to step closer, reaching for me, but I took a step back, and that hurt her more than anything, more than the exposure, more than the humiliation, because she was used to being the one in control. She was used to being able to touch soft and manipulate, but not anymore. Don't do this, she whispered, her voice breaking. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Don't you still love me? I looked at her, really looked at her, and I felt nothing, no anger, no hatred, no nostalgia for what we used to be, just a void where something once existed, because love is built on trust, and without it there is nothing left to save. I loved who you pretended to be, I said finally, but that person doesn't exist, and you made sure of that. Her lip quivered. She tried to hold back a sob, her fingers tightening around the divorce papers as if she could crush them into dust, but reality was already pressing in on her. She had nowhere to go, no safety net, no way out. I had made sure of that. You don't have to do this, she tried one last time, her voice barely above a whisper. But I already did. I turned, then walking away, leaving her standing there alone, drowning in her own choices, because in the end that was the real punishment. Not screaming, not insults, not revenge driven by rage, but silence, the kind of silence that follows when the last thread of control has been ripped away, and all that's left is the realization that she was the architect of her own downfall. She fell apart quickly, faster than even I expected. At first she tried to salvage it, to spin the story, to control the damage, but there was nothing left to control. The moment I walked away that night, the reality of her choices came crashing down around her, and no amount of excuses or carefully crafted lies could stop it, because I had made sure of that. I had orchestrated every detail with precision, not just to expose her, but to strip away everything she had built, leaving her with nothing but the wreckage of her own betrayal. Her friends, the ones who used to hang on her every word, who used to praise her for being the perfect wife, the perfect woman, they turned on her almost instantly, some out of disgust, others out of fear that associating with her would taint their own reputations. After all, no one wants to be aligned with the woman who was publicly exposed as a liar, a cheater, a fraud. The same people she once considered allies suddenly distanced themselves, whispered about her behind closed doors, deleted her from group chats, ignored her messages. She had spent years cultivating her image, and in one night it was gone. Her family was no different. She had always played the role of the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, but even they couldn't look past the evidence. When I sent them the proof, when I let them see her for who she really was, the disappointment in their voices, the shame they felt knowing their daughter, their sister, had been caught so completely it was too much for her to bear. They stopped defending her, stopped making excuses, and without their support she was truly alone. But the worst part for her, the part that broke her, wasn't the social fallout. It wasn't the friends who abandoned her, or the family that no longer looked at her the same way. It was the life she lost, the life she had taken for granted, because I took everything: the house, the accounts, the security she once thought was guaranteed. She had been so focused on her little affair, on sneaking around and playing games, that she never realized I had been planning my own moves in the background, and by the time she did, it was too late. I had already transferred every asset that mattered into my name legally, strategically ensuring that when the dust settled she would walk away with nothing. The house was mine, the car was mine, the money was mine, every financial safety net she thought she had was gone, and with no job, no real savings, no one left to lean on, she found herself standing at the edge of the very reality she had created for herself. She tried to fight at first, tried to claim I was being cruel, that I was punishing her unfairly, but the truth was written in ink, in contracts she had signed without realizing, in legal agreements she had never bothered to read, because she trusted me. The irony was almost poetic. The woman who had spent months lying to my face had blindly signed away everything she had without question, and when she finally understood what that meant, when she realized that the comfortable life she had known was over, the panic set in. She begged not for forgiveness, not for love, but for stability, for some piece of the past that she could hold on to. But there was nothing left for her here, not in my life, not in my home, not in the world she had so carelessly thrown away. She moved out. Of course there was no choice in the matter. She packed what little she had left and walked out the door with nowhere to go, no plan, no backup, just the crushing weight of regret pressing down on her. And for the first time she felt the helplessness she had once made me feel, but the difference was I had climbed out of it. I had built something new while she was left with nothing. I heard things through mutual acquaintances that she bounced between places, sleeping on couches, overstaying welcomes, that she tried reaching out to old friends only to be ignored, that the affair the man she had risked everything for wanted nothing to do with her once she had lost it all. He had been interested in the thrill and the secrecy, but when the fantasy crumbled, when she was no longer the untouchable woman sneaking around behind my back, but just another broken person in need, he vanished, leaving her more alone than ever. And me, I thrived. I moved forward without hesitation, without guilt, because I had won not just in exposing her, but in ensuring that every piece of my life that mattered stayed intact while hers crumbled around her. I kept my home, my finances, my future, and most importantly, I kept my dignity. I never once lowered myself to her level, never once let her manipulate me back into her world. She tried, of course, desperate attempts to reconnect, to find some way back in, but every call, every message, every pathetic attempt at reconciliation was met with the same response: silence. Because that was the final victory, not just leaving her behind, but making sure she knew there was no path back, making sure she understood that she wasn't just losing a marriage, she was losing everything because of her own choices, and there was nothing she could do to change that. Time has a way of settling things, balancing the scales, removing the weight of what was and replacing it with something lighter, something cleaner. Looking back now, I don't feel anger, I don't feel regret. If anything, I feel something close to gratitude, because she taught me something valuable, not about love, not about trust, but about clarity, about knowing when to walk away, about understanding that sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting someone back, it's about making sure they can never hurt you again. I think about her sometimes, not in a longing way, not with sadness or nostalgia, but in the way you remember a lesson you had to learn the hard way. I wonder if she ever thinks about me, if she ever regrets what she did, if she lays awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wishing she had made different choices. But it doesn't matter anymore, because I sleep just fine. She tried to reach out once, a message sent late at night, no explanation, no apology, just a simple "I miss you." I stared at the screen for a moment, not because I was tempted, not because it stirred anything inside me, but because it was proof that she finally understood what she had lost, proof that she was sitting in the emptiness of the life she had created for herself, looking back at what we had, what she had ruined, and realizing too late that there was no going back. I deleted the message without responding, because some things don't deserve an answer, some people don't deserve another chance. Life moved on for me. It always does when you refuse to be a victim, when you refuse to let someone else's betrayal define you. I built something new, something better. I surrounded myself with people who were real, people who knew the value of honesty, of loyalty. In her, she faded into the background, a shadow, a reminder of a different time, a different person that no longer had any place in my world. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just knowing that the person who tried to break you is out there, realizing they only destroyed themselves. That's what real justice is. Not anger, not revenge, not hate, just walking away with your head high and letting them drown in their own choices while you keep rising without them. So tell me, if it were you, if you were in my place, if you had seen what I saw, if you had felt that moment when suspicion turned into certainty, when love turned into nothing, what would you have done? Would you have exposed her the way I did? Would you have let her crumble under the weight of her own lies, or would you have walked away without ever looking back? Tell me, what do you have done if you were me?